I'm sure this seems weird. The security guard recording them all at night, but things keep happening here at night and no one believes me. You see those? This isn't the first time I've seen them. Everyone tells me some kid probably left them. But that's the thing. This mall doesn't have a ball pit, so where are they coming from? See, I'm not crazy. There they are, real as can be. Whoa, whoa!
So, there it is. The play place at the end of the hall is what we're going to be making today. It's from an upcoming game called Subliminal. As the game is still in development, I'm sure it will change in the future, but this is the version we'll be going off of. I'll start by modeling it in Blender. Let's start with the slides. The easiest way I could think of doing this was to draw the profile and extrude it. The profile is just what the object would look like if you cut it in half. Next, I drew a curve that the slide could follow, and then duplicated it 4 more times. I'm going to model the padded posts that make up the structure in basically the same way. Because the padded posts aren't perfectly smooth, I'll be adding 2 different modifiers. First, a simple deform to give it more of a pudgy look, and a displacement to make it look lumpy. Next up, the zap straps, or whatever you call them. Because these will end up being so small in the final project, I am going to keep them pretty simple. Because the padded posts are just repeated over and over again, it was very simple to do within Blender, but it became the most time-consuming part of the whole project in real life. There ended up being over 100 small posts and 30 tall posts. The padded steps were the easiest part of the project in and out of Blender, just a rectangle with a bevel and a displacement to give it that lumpy look. The foam floor mats were pretty simple to make. I just modeled one of the puzzle-like pieces and then duplicated it over and over and over again and joined the whole thing together. This not only makes it easy to model, but it ensures that all the parts will fit together well, because they are all the same. To get the sign as close as I could to the reference images, I ended up altering a pre-existing font, and I think it ended up looking really good. As you can see, both the padded steps and the slides both have lots of layer lines, and they'll need to be sanded off. But look, I finally got a Dremel and an abrasive buff. If you have a non-flat surface that you need to sand smooth, I don't know a better way of doing it. In all my previous projects, I've used 2-part epoxy because I thought it would be the strongest and fastest way to glue 3D prints together. But this time, I gave super glue a shot, and sure enough, it did take longer to cure. That was until I got an accelerator spray. So instead of 5 minutes to cure, it only took 5 seconds. So that was a game changer. I ended up using it on basically every single part of this project, from the slides to the steps to the posts, and never had an issue. Ah yes, the walls that I had alluded to being very time consuming. I think each of the walls took me about 4 hours to put together. Why so long? Well, because everything's gonna get glued to these walls, they do need to be very accurate. Other than that, everything else is just gonna get thrown off. And if it hadn't already taken long enough, a whole bundle of padded steps fell onto the wall, destroying it, and ended up having to redo it. But oh well. For each of the letters that make up the sign, I did 4 heavy coats of black paint just to make sure that there wouldn't be any light leakage out the side or back of the boxes. This is how I stored all the finished parts before assembling them. I did this to try to keep everything up and off the floor away from dust, but it ended up on the floor anyways, as you saw earlier. The walls are back again. I hand cut each of these mesh squares to sew on and hand sewed each of them on. This took a ton of time, but it was worth it. I think they turned out excellent. As you can see, I ended up with orange peel on all of the padded steps. They call it that because of the way that it looks, sort of a rough texture. I was able to fix this by sanding it with 2000 grit and then polishing it with some polishing compound in the Dremel. Almost all of the pieces that I've painted, you can see that I've mounted them with popsicle sticks or toothpicks. I'm sure it's obvious that I did this because it makes it easier to hold while painting. But now, how do you get them off? Well, it's actually pretty easy. You can just cut them off or pull them off. I decided to cut them off the back of the slides because the slides were actually quite thin, and I didn't want to risk breaking them. The back of the slides won't be seen anyways, so it can just hang out there and no one will know. Well, now you will. The slides were really quite challenging to glue together. As you can see, they're all warped in different ways. Although they are all the same shape, it makes them very hard to pinch together and glue together without a seam. Now, for the LED play place sign. This is the first time that I'll be doing any sort of electronics in my projects. I start by outlining each of the letters so that I can lay out the LEDs properly. I chose the Luminous Devices MP505240E because they were the brightest LED I could fit in the light boxes at a reasonable price of 35 cents each. In total, I used about 90 LEDs, 10 LEDs per light, 9 letters. I'm using a face-up piece of paper tape to keep the LEDs in place while I solder them. I wired all the LEDs within the letter in parallel, and then each letter to another letter in series. I did this to keep the amp requirements low so that I could use a thin wire. I knew no matter what I did, there would be quite a few wires on the back of this sign, so I was trying to keep the wire as thin as possible to make sure it would be easy to hide. I know that these LEDs really should have some sort of a heat sink. Because I was running these LEDs at a fraction of their capability, I was still able to run them for about 15 minutes without any issues. Because these LEDs are so thin, it means that they can sit all the way at the back of the light box, creating a nice, evenly lit letter without hot spots. Because of how I wired the LEDs, I need about 46 volts to run them. So I went with the Meanwell ELG 24048A, which provides 48 volts, which was wrong. I actually needed the B variant that has dimming functionality. And if you're thinking, wow, that's quite a big power supply, does it really need to be that big? No, and I certainly don't need to. Without the dimming functionality, the LEDs would just run at full power and would overheat too quickly. Next, I laser cut each letter out of an acrylic sheet. To ensure each letter is in the exact right position, I drew out a template on the tape where I would place the letters and then glue them to a post. I tucked the wires in as good as I could and glued them to the back of the post so that they wouldn't be seen in the final shots. For the cloud walls and ceiling, I took the exact texture that I made and got it printed onto some matte poster paper. I then glued it to a foam core board with 3M Super 77 spray. Here I am cutting out light holes in the ceiling. In Blender, I'm able to make lights invisible, but you can't really do that in real life, so my goal is to shine light through these holes and through the poster paper so that you get the light, but you don't have to see it too much. I ended up getting some glue on one of the posters, and while trying to fix it, I didn't realize that just 1 foot away, the hydrogen peroxide was leaking, meaning my fix didn't matter. Next, I glued in the connecting posts to attach the 2 walls together, as well as the posts that hold up the steps. I didn't know which wall would go where, so I just sewed all of the mesh in and decided I would cut out any panels that weren't needed later. Now to cut the foam floor tiles. I discovered that the real foam floor tiles are EVA foam, and these thin craft sheets are also EVA foam. So this is as close as you can get to the real thing, but just small. There was obviously no way that I was going to be cutting hundreds of these things out by hand, so I got the Cricut to do it for me. I decided to use a thin piece of plywood for the base of the project because it's strong. Here I am gluing in the connecting posts that connect the single wall to the double wall with the stairs. This is where the slides will rest and the sign will be. Because the poster boards aren't perfectly flat, I'm drilling these little holes in the top of the posts so I can put pins through the poster boards into these holes and glue everything down to be flat.